Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the news in this past week of nerdy movies. Um, yeah, not a huge show to talk about today. Like not a ton of news, but still some interesting stuff that we can discuss. So let's just get right into it. First up, we got a trailer this week. I straight up did not even. I forgot to adjust my camera. That's crazy. Does that look okay? Yeah, whatever. It'll be. So just be how it looks. I didn't. Um, I just straight up forgot to do that. But okay, we're good. Yeah. So we got a trailer for Avatar 2, The Way of Water, the most highly anticipated movie of the year. Kind of unironically. Okay, so here's the thing about Avatar. I wish I could be one of the cool kids that just hates on Avatar. But I've seen this movie once when I was 9 years old, and I don't really remember it. Maybe in a way that's its own judgment on the movie. But yeah, I just straight up don't remember the movie. I get the gist of it, where it's like these guys, they come to the planet, but the way that they come to the planet is because they go into a machine that turns them into the blue aliens somehow. And then he meets the blue aliens, and he's like, dang, blue aliens aren't bad. I should have not had these preconceived notions of the blue aliens. And then he's like, I actually like the blue aliens. I actually really like Zoe Saldana blue alien. And then he decides to go against his race or something. That's vaguely what I remember the movie's about. But I know everybody likes to hate on it, but I just simply don't remember enough of it to hate on it. I kind of want to go back and watch the first one when they re-release it in theaters. Just to get the whole 3D IMAX experience. I might do that when it comes out. We'll see. But I did see the trailer for the second movie, and it looks like Avatar. I honestly don't have much to say about it. I do think it looks pretty, like visually speaking. I think the CGI is really good. I think the water looks really good, especially like when you look at the way the water hits things, and it's I don't even know how to really explain it, but it's just like really good CGI, obviously, as one would hope. I actually didn't when I went to go see Doctor Strange 2. I know it was supposed to play in front of it, but I actually didn't do it. I did get to the screening late, so maybe it's like one of the first trailers that they played, but I guess I just missed it, or maybe they didn't play it at my screening, but so I didn't get to watch it in the theater for the first time, which is a little disappointing. But I don't know. The trailer looks fine. It's more Avatar. I honestly don't know. Okay, so next up. We got some gameplay. So they released a gameplay video for Gotham Knights. Now this is a movie, or this is a game being developed by WB Montreal. These are the guys that made Batman Arkham Origins, if you remember, and they're kind of that was a game that was kind of the redheaded stepchild of the Batman Arkham franchise. Of course, if you don't know, Rocksteady, they're the developers that made Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight. And then Arkham Origins were made by this other developer, still owned by WB, called WB Games Montreal. And they kind of basically took the engine of Arkham City and they made a prequel. And it's a game that's not incredibly well regarded by a lot of people. I personally really like it. I actually think that while, yes, in terms of gameplay, it is a worse version of Arkham City, but it has a really good story. I think it's a really good Batman origin story. I think it's a really good, Batman meeting Joker for the first time story. I quite enjoyed it. And so, I've been wanting to see them come out with their own thing and make a name for themselves. That being said, Arkham Origins was their last game. Came out in 2013. When this game comes out, it'll have been 9 years since their last game. That's insane and kind of unacceptable. I feel like if I were WB, I'd be like, you guys have taken 9 years to make this. What even, right? Kind of like Avatar. It's like it's this game. Avatar 2 should have come out like 10 years ago. It feels like. But yeah, Gotham Knights. The gameplay, it looks like it doesn't look terrible, but I just can't help but be unimpressed by it. Now, I will say it definitely looks different from the Arkham games. Like the combat system looks different in that it doesn't seem to have like the traditional press triangle to counter system that the Arkham games have, which and it feels like they've really gone out of their way to go. We're not going to do the Arkham combat system because we really need to differentiate ourselves from that. But I wonder if they've done that to a fault in the sense that that's a really good combat system. And this combat system, it looks a lot slower. It looks like kind of more strategic in a way where I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell exactly how it's going to feel and how exactly it's going to play, but you kind of saw Nightwing and Red Hood it felt like the guy was being a bit more deliberate and he was kind of like moving around a bit and shoving people around towards different enemy attacks. And I don't even know exactly how to play it, so I definitely recommend or I don't know exactly how to explain it, so I definitely recommend you just going and looking at it for yourselves. But like for example, like when they threw a grenade at Red Hood, he like kind of like sidestepped in and threw a guy into it, and I'm like, that looks cool. That looks kind of interesting. And maybe it'll be like the Guardians of the Galaxy game where the combat just didn't look intuitive just looking at it. But then when you realize that it's not so much about the traditional sort of action-based combat, but actually like being a leader and commanding the other Guardians to do stuff, maybe it'll be that kind of experience where I go into it and I actually see what it's about and I really appreciate it. I don't know, but it looks like they've maybe tried too hard to differentiate themselves from the Arkham games. And I mean, just from the get-go, I mean, so I have this picture of Nightwing open up here. It opens with him like jumping off of the building and pulling out this like Fortnite glider thing. And maybe this is unfair, but just seeing the Fortnite glider made me kind of made me upset. And it's just one of those things where I just have this kind of disdain for Fortnite that's totally unfair because I'm like, Fortnite is a fine enough game. Like I've played it with people whenever they've been like, hey, you want to play Fortnite? I'm like, yeah, sure. But I just have this disdain for the game. It's just like that just bothered me from the get-go. And it's just weird because it's just like, I don't know, like Nightwing was in the Arkham games and you could kind of just, or actually no, I actually don't think you could traverse the open world with Nightwing now that I think about it. But I'm like, I actually don't remember. But I remember just being like, yeah, whatever, use the grappling hook and it's fine. So I don't know, it's just weird. And then Red Hood, he has this weird like mystical thing where he can kind of like hop around in the air. And the traversal just seems weird where I'm like, either just give them glide like capes, or I saw people were like posting comic book issues of Nightwing where he kind of has these like squirrel suit looking thing that's just that sometimes it's just built into his costume. Just give him that because gliding is just cool. I don't know. I don't know. Please tell me if I'm just like, if I'm off base here, or if you disagree with me, but this game just doesn't look impressive, and it's a shame. I mean, even visually, I feel like Arkham Knight looks better than this game. I feel like it just does. And maybe I just need to go back and look at Arkham Knight again, but at the very least, from like an art style point of view, it just looks more appealing, you know? So listen, I want to play this game and fall in love with it and super appreciate it, but I mean, even from a narrative point of view, they haven't really given me anything to chew on, right? Like even when I look at like the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, when I look at the CGI trailers, because we've only gotten CGI trailers from that with very brief glimpses of gameplay that doesn't even really give us any context of what the gameplay is going to be. Like, even looking at the CGI trailers, I really like the characterizations of those characters. Like, I watched that trailer and I'm like, yeah, I want to play a game as these characters. I want to see them kind of interact with each other and whatever. I don't really get that from this game. Like I don't really care to see like I don't really care about seeing this specific Nightwing interact with this specific Red Hood. Like they have a little bit of a back and forth between them in this gameplay demo, and it just doesn't feel great. It doesn't like the dialogue isn't especially good. The voice acting doesn't feel especially good. The way it's presented doesn't feel especially good. And that's the thing. Like I thought the narrative in our Arkham Origins was very strong, and I haven't quite seen anything from this game that indicates that it's going to be the same here. So I just don't know. We'll see. I probably spent way too long talking about it, but it's just my opinions. All right, so those are the trailers. Next up, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which has finished filming. So there was a tweet by James Gunn, the director. It says, and that's a picture wrap on the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. I love this amazing cast and crew and their beautiful talent and kind souls. I'm a lucky human to have them on the journey with me for nearly a decade. So, yeah. It looks like Guardians of the Galaxy is done filming. That presumably means that the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special is also done filming, because that was filming alongside Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So that's coming this December. So I'm just assuming that that's done as well. And yeah, so that's, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of post-production work done, but I feel like that's the last Marvel movie that James Gunn is going to have done. It's over, at least filming. And I feel like it's the last one that he's going to do for a while. You know, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy movies have been some of the best in the MCU. And I super appreciate James Gunn and just the auteurism that he brings to his projects. You know, he's just one of the few directors that is able to work within, blockbuster filmmaking and truly just have an identity where it's like you're watching it and this is a James Gunn movie. And I think that brings a lot to these Guardians movies. And I'm just really interested to see what he's going to do to cap off the trilogy. You know, they've said that this is going to be the last time we see this specific cast of Guardians together. I didn't include it in the story, but Dave Bautista posted a tweet kind of alluding to the fact that this is going to be his last time playing Drax. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to die or anything, but we're probably going to see a narrative send-off for him as well. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this movie. Okay, and while Guardians is done filming, Ahsoka, on the other hand, has begun filming. So they also posted a tweet. This is the official Star Wars Twitter account saying Ahsoka on original series starts production today. So yeah, there's a little hat there on the Ahsoka chair, probably the director's chair, and I believe that's Dave Filoni's hat. He's the guy. He's one of the showrunners of this, I would assume, and probably one of the directors. He's probably directing a couple episodes, I would assume. And you know, if you don't know who Dave Filoni is, he was basically like the showrunner on like the Clone Wars animated show and Rebels, and so he kind of made a name for himself in the Star Wars animated realm, and then he kind of began, he got into the Mandalorian, working with Jon Favreau. So and Ahsoka is a character from the Clone Wars, so I imagine that this he's gonna have a heavy hand in this live action show as well. But yeah, Ahsoka's a show that I'm definitely intrigued by. I've actually been watching the Clone Wars, and not recently, but because I've been watching it at a slower pace. But I watched there's like a turning point in the show, and I don't want to spoil it, but if you know the Clone Wars, I hope you know what I'm talking about, where something big happens with Ahsoka, and I think makes her like an especially interesting character, and one of the more interesting characters in Star Wars. And so I hopefully I'll have watched the Clone Wars and caught up with Rebels, but there's that one specific point that actually made Ahsoka a very interesting character to me, and so I want to see where she goes and what her deal is, and especially here in the live action form. So yeah, well, we'll see that when it comes. Okay, next up, let's talk a bit about Miss Marvel. Kevin Feige has come out and talked and kind of explained why her powers have changed from the comics. So this is coming from CBR. We adapt the comics. It's not an exact translation. Feige told Empire about all the changes to Miss Marvel's backstory. Kamala came about in a very specific time within the comic book continuity. She's now coming into a very specific time within the MCU continuity, and those two things didn't match. It taps into the future of her story as it connects to her other friends that she will meet in the upcoming film The Marvels, confirms Feige. Amon's interested in knowing. Great, does that mean I'm an Asgardian? Did I get hit with gamma rays? No, it's seemingly none of those things. It goes to her own past and her heritage and lineage. So yeah, this has been kind of controversial on Twitter, but basically, in the comics, Kamala has like stretchy powers, kind of like Mr. Fantastic, um, where she's able to kind of like grow and stretch her limbs and shapeshift to a certain degree, I believe as well. And in the show, in the Miss Marvel show, she's actually gonna have these kind of like almost Green Lantern ish powers, which I believe comes from these like bracelets that she wears, where she can like construct stuff. So like in the comics, she would make her like whenever she'd punch, she'd make like a giant fist, and it seems like she's gonna kind of do similar stuff to that, but except it's gonna be these like energy sort of cosmic powers, like constructs, I guess. And a lot of the comic fans are mad that obviously like anytime you change something from when you're adapting something, the fans are going to get mad. There are fans going that are going to get mad inherently, but from the arguments that I've understood, and I haven't read the Miss Marvel comic books, but basically a big part of the comic books is that her having these like stretchy shape shifting powers, they aren't like the most aesthetically pleasing powers, and that's kind of part of Miss Marvel's journey is that she's not happy with herself. She feels kind of not ashamed, but kind of in society obviously is going to have a big deal, is going to have a lot to deal in this regard of that the fact that that she's Pakistani and just growing up in America, that's tough, and she needs to learn to accept to love herself for who she is and all that stuff. And then the stretchy powers not being these beautiful aesthetically pleasing powers, that kind of like ties into all of that thematically. And she eventually accepts herself for who she is, and everybody Yas Queen, Miss Marvel, self-empowerment, Yas, right? There's that whole that's it's like the stretchy powers are a part of her character. Now, I'm personally of the opinion of I don't necessarily I'm not I don't when something is adapted, I don't need it to be exactly the same. I don't mind with it going in a completely different direction. And this is my thing, but as long as I watch it and it's good, I don't really care all that much. That's why like no, I'm not saying that like they shouldn't. I'm not saying something shouldn't be faithful to the source material. I mean, one of the reasons why I love the Batman so much is because I personally feel like it is extremely faithful to at least some of my favorite iterations of the character. Um and it would like I kind of described it as like it's the first time that I watched a Batman movie and like went, oh my gosh, they did it. Like they nailed Batman. And I'm not then so like, and to a certain degree, I can understand Miss Marvel fans being like, oh no, but they're not adapting the version of the character that I like. But that being said, like when I watch the Nolan movies, for example, are there aspects about those movies where I'm like, that's not really the Batman that I know and like, but I'm not like mad at Nolan. Like I'm not like, you messed up the character. It's like, no, this is like his version of the character and he's doing things differently, and I'm just gonna appreciate these movies for what they are. And I see a lot of Miss Marvel fans not taking that approach where they're basically going, oh well, this is different from the iteration of the character that I know, so I don't like it. It's bad. Um, so that that's obviously disappointing to see. And also, they also don't like the fact that this decision, as Kevin Feige points out, is being made because they want to tie her powers into other storylines in the MCU, and I'm just like, that's just the thing that the MCU does. Like, decisions are made so that they tie into other movies. And that's not bad. That's just serialized storytelling where characters are going to connect to each other and storylines are going to connect to each other in different ways. Like, I mean, I guess if you just don't like the concept of serialized storytelling and connected universes, that's fine. But like, why would you be mad at that? I guess it's just weird to get mad about it in this specific instance, just because it's something that's happening to a character that you like. It's weird. It's like if you hate the concept of forget that this is a film franchise. It's like if you don't like serialized storytelling, and you don't like the fact that one thing is it, like one thing in a show, for example, is like a decision is being made because they want to connect to to a storyline in a different episode, right? Just follow that line of logic for a second. I guess it's fine if you don't like that, but I guess you just don't like the concept of a TV show, of different episodes in a TV show connecting to each other. Am I making any sense? Like, I guess it's fine if you don't like it, and it's fine if you just don't like the concept of a shared universe, but why are you getting so up in arms that a shared universe is doing shared universe stuff? Yeah, like, am I making sense? Like, it's just a weird thing to harp on about. But yeah, I personally, just to wrap up my thoughts here, I personally don't care that they're making changes to the comics. Not only do I not have a ton of, not only do I just have never read the comics, so I don't even care. I don't care from that front. But even if this was a character that I had a super deep appreciation for, I would be fine with letting filmmakers have their own take on it and make changes. But yeah, tell me why I'm wrong about that in the comments down below. Okay, next up, Jack Ryan, the Amazon show. Looks like season 4, the next season, is going to be the last. It's coming from Deadline. No one is commenting, but according to sources, Krasinski had committed to 4 seasons of Jack Ryan when he signed on to take on the famous role previously played by Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Ben Affleck, and Chris Pine. In addition to starring and exec producing, Krasinski has been helping to steer the series in a writing showrunner type capacity during the latter part of the show. Or of its run, I should say. Okay. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care about Jack Ryan. The main reason why I'm bringing this up is because this news has kind of led a lot of people to think, oh, John Krasinski and... Okay, I guess I'm put myself in a pickle because I forgot to give a spoiler warning, but this story is going to include spoilers for Multiverse of Madness, but now it feels useless to point out because the fact that the fact that I'm telling you that this is a spoiler for Multiverse of Madness kind of in effect spoils Multiverse of Madness. Whatever. Yes, John Krasinski shows up in Multiverse of Madness as Reed Richards. So whatever, that context is there now. Deal with it. You should have seen the movie by now. Probably it's been out for a week. But whatever. So Jack, people seeing like, oh, Jack season 4 is going to be his last season, and that kind of has now spurred people to assume that John Krasinski is doing Fantastic Four. He's directing it now. And this doesn't really seem to be the case. At least you probably shouldn't go around assuming that, because as it says in the Deadline article, that's the deal that they made in the beginning. Like, that John Krasinski wanted to do it for 4 seasons. He's done it for 4 seasons, and now he's cool. He's content, it seems like. And I mean, honestly, that makes sense. I mean, just set apart the possibility of John of him doing Fantastic Four. I mean, he has really made a name for himself as the director, right? Doing the 2 A Quiet Place movies, and I'm sure like people like this Jack Ryan show. I've heard that it's good, so I'm not saying that he doesn't he probably I'm not saying it's like bad and that he wants to move away from it, but I assume he wants to devote his time to doing his own stuff, right? Like making his own movies and maybe directing Fantastic Four. Yeah, like maybe he is going to star in and direct the Fantastic Four movie, but again, I wouldn't go around assuming that that is the case because, or at least because of this story, because as it's said in this in the article, this was the plan from the start. So that is my take. I still think there's a decent chance that he's going to do Fantastic Four, but let's not go around assuming that. Okay. The next story is also going to have Doctor Strange spoilers. I meant to do it straight from the Miss Marvel story, but whatever. If you haven't seen Doctor Strange, this next story is going to spoil it, so I'm sorry. And it is what it is. If you're watching a show called Nerdy Movie News Roundup, you've seen Doctor Strange. Let's be real here. Okay, so it looks like the character that we saw in the post-credit scene is in fact Doctor Strange's love interest. This is coming from Screen Rant. And this is a quote from the writer of the movie, by the way. I think his name is Michael Waldron or something. We knew that we wanted to introduce Clea. She's Strange's great love in the comics, and it felt to me like Strange wasn't at the point at the start of our movie where he was ready to meet the love of his life. It felt like we had to close the loop with he and Christine Palmer. And so after she gives him her wisdom to not be afraid of loving someone, then it felt like we were right to tease what could be eventually with he and Clea. So, I'll be honest, I didn't really like the post-credit scenes for this movie. Like, the first one with where Clea shows up, it's just incredibly random, and I'm just like, okay, what does any of that mean? And then the one with Bruce Campbell, I don't know, it just didn't really hit for me. I didn't find it especially funny. But yeah, like I apparently, yeah, Clea is apparently his love interest in the comic books, and the writer is saying that yes, in the film universe, she will also be a love interest of Doctor Strange, and that's cool. Like, that can potentially be a cool story, especially when you especially when you watch the movie and you see where he's left off. I mean, that could definitely be an interesting thing, and an interesting next step for his character. But yeah. There's not really much else to say about it because, of course, the post-credit scene was weird and I don't really understand what it means. But cool. Although I will say it is kind of interesting. It feels like a lot of this Marvel stuff is being like heavily centralized around like characters and their love lives. You know, like there is obviously stuff in Doctor Strange that is, I mean, a lot of Doctor Strange really at the end of the day is centered around that. Thor Love and Thunder, we're going to see Thor and Jane back together. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be back together, but you know, it's going to be a movie about him and his ex. You know, there was another like clear example. In like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that's going to deal with like Peter and Gamora. I don't know. I find it interesting that they're like a lot of this Marvel stuff is like really heavily tied into, like, it seems like the plots of these movies are going to be heavily tied into relationships. That's not a bad thing. That's just an interesting thing that I've noticed. Okay, next up. So, on this channel, I've been kind of making the prediction that, you know, since, you know, Warner Brothers was recently bought out by Discovery, and I've been making the prediction that Discovery is going to cancel all of the CW shows. This story does not doesn't exactly help prove me right. I can't speak. Because Gotham Knights has been given a series order. Now, to be clear, this is an upcoming CW show that has nothing to do with the Gotham Knights video game. There isn't any imagery for the show, so I put up this screenshot of the game, but it has nothing to do with the game. I just wanted to be clear about that. And yeah, so this is a show that is apparently about an adopted son of Bruce Wayne, who I think is a Robin, but isn't any of the ones from the comic books. It's going to be a new character. He has to team, or I guess because on the show Batman died, it's another show about Batman, but Batman's not in it. But Batman died, and Bruce Wayne's adopted son and the kids of a bunch of other villains, they're framed for Batman's murder, and the show is about them, I guess, being fugitives or something. Really weird concept for a show. But they filmed the pilot, I believe, and it's been apparently given a series order, which admittedly does fly in the face of my theory that the CW shows are being canceled. Now, we're about to get into a story that does support my theory, and I guess I'll give my renewed thoughts after we get into this next series, or after we get into this next story. Naomi has been canceled after one season. So Naomi was another one of these CW DC shows. And yeah, after one season, it's been canceled. I've actually been watching this show because I recently I decided that I was going to get back into the CW DC stuff. So I was like, I'm watching it all. Doesn't matter. I'm watching Naomi, and it's really not especially good. It's like a Disney Channel. It feels like a Disney Channel original thing where it's about like teenagers going on adventures. It's like, ooh, stuff is happening in our town. Let's investigate. And yeah, it's overall just not a very good show. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't very good. And it's now been canceled. Now, as of right now, and when we've seen Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow also get canceled, The Flash is going to have its upcoming 9th season, but it's been confirmed as that is going to be its last season. So, just so we're clear here, the only shows right now, the only CW DC shows that we have left are Superman and Lois, Stargirl, although they haven't, I think that they haven't confirmed that it's coming back. It just hasn't been officially canceled. And now this Gotham Knights show that has been given a straight to series order. So Superman and Lois, which, you know, hasn't been canceled, but also I don't think it hasn't been confirmed that we're getting another season of that. Stargirl, which we haven't gotten a confirmation that it's getting another season. And Gotham Knights, which we know is getting a straight to series order. 3 shows. But we've seen Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and now Naomi get canceled. And The Flash, we know that it's coming to an end. I still believe that we are going to see this CW DC universe come to an end. Now, with this Gotham Knights thing happening, I'm starting to believe that maybe it's not going to be like a complete end of DC stuff on the CW, but I don't think there's going to be this huge emphasis on this is our shared DC universe. I think we're going to see Superman and Lois maybe continue. I still think that could potentially get canceled because I know they want to do Superman stuff in the DCEU and on HBO Max. And I think listen, I like Superman and Lois, but there's no doubt that having this Superman show on the CW, it kind of cheapens the character. As good as the show is, I think it's pretty good. I do think it cheapens the character, and it's only going to make whatever show or movie that they want to do feel redundant. So I think we're going to see Superman and Lois get canceled. I don't know. Listen, I haven't seen Stargirl, have no opinions on it. That's probably going to get canceled too, I would just assume. And this Gotham Knights show, maybe if it's good, maybe it gets picked up on HBO Max. I don't think they want to continue this CW stuff because it's just kind of like these shows just aren't, they don't have especially high viewership, and it's just not, it's also just not very good. Like Superman and Lois is pretty good. I'm not gonna, I enjoy the show. Naomi wasn't. I dropped off of The Flash because it got bad. Arrow, I got dropped off of Arrow because it was bad. Legends of Tomorrow was never especially good. Supergirl was never especially good. And I just feel like Discovery, I feel like they really just want to embolden HBO Max properties like we've seen with Peacemaker and Doom Patrol. And I personally don't think Titans is very good, but I think they see that HBO Max is just such a good they just make really good content, so they probably want to embolden the creatives at HBO Max to make stuff, and that's just what I think is gonna happen. So yeah, that's where I stand. I still think the CW DC verse is going to be to be killed in a vicious, brutal fashion. But we'll see. We'll see. This Gotham Knights series order has it's making me reconsider some things, but that's still my take. I think at the best case scenario for CW DC stuff is that there's like one or two shows that are left over, but they're just kind of left to stand on their own, and they're not these like it's not going to be this big interconnected CW television universe. But we'll see what happens. And in kind of similar news, MODOK has also been canceled on Hulu. So one of the things that definitely did happen was when Marvel decided to start making these Disney Plus MCU shows, we saw all of the other Marvel TV get canceled. We saw Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. get canceled. Netflix shows got canceled, but that isn't really related to it. Netflix canceled those shows themselves. We saw shows like The Defenders and like The Runaways get canceled. And then we saw some like kind of leftover stuff come out. Like MODOK came out for one season. I tried watching it. I didn't think it was very good. It's kind of like made by the Robot Chicken people, and then the Robot Chicken never really. It's just not really for me. So I didn't really like MODOK. And it's been canceled after one season. And honestly, my guess is that I think the primary reason that it was canceled was because it's just not like Marvel wants to make MCU related content on Disney Plus. So I don't think this obviously doesn't fit into that. And I don't know, I've heard nobody talk about it, so my guess it also didn't have very high viewership. And so from what I've read, and I haven't looked too deep into it, from what I understand, the only non-MCU show that hasn't been canceled is the Hit Monkey show that's also on Hulu. Now, it also hasn't been renewed from what I understand for a new season, but it hasn't been officially canceled. And my guess is that we're going to hear confirmation that it's been officially canceled pretty soon. Yeah, I also haven't checked this one out. This one could honestly be pretty good. I just haven't watched it, but it's about a hitman who's a monkey. And that sounds pretty fun. So maybe I will check it out, but it looks like it's probably, I doubt it's going to be canceled, but it is the last vestige of the non-MCU Marvel show. And yeah, it's just one of those things where with HBO Max and Disney Plus, it seems like, or more specifically with Discovery buying Warner Brothers, it seems like they really just want to focus all of their money and creative talents towards emboldening not only HBO Max and Disney Plus, but emboldening the DCEU and the MCU with these streaming shows. And I'm kind of mixed opinions on that, because I don't know, it's like, even though I didn't like MODOK, I appreciated its existence. I appreciated the fact that it was something that was able to do its own thing and not be not be strapped down by the constraints of the MCU. Like, I appreciated that about it, and it is kind of sad that we're not going to get any more stuff like this, but it is what it is. So let me know. Are you saddened by the cancellation of Naomi and MODOK? Let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, so those were all of the news stories of the week. Now let's get into what I've been playing, because I haven't really been watching anything. um, I I just I haven't really had the time to watch TV. Um, but the first thing I've been playing is Blasphemous. So this is one of these like 2D. I guess it's kind of pixel art. No, not really pixel art. It's more like it's actually. I want to say it's. I mean, it's probably hand drawn or something, but it's not really pixel art. But it's one of these 2D Metroidvania games. You know, because there aren't enough of those in the world. But it's a pretty solid one. It's very. I will say, but I do recommend it. I do think it's pretty solid, but it is very grim. It's very like it's not just gory, but like it's just grim. Like there's no humor happening here. There's no like there's no happiness to be found in this game. It's just depression. It feels like, but the game. But that being said, I'm not really paying attention to the story. I'm mostly being like, oh, this is some really great art and the gameplay's fun. It's just one of those things where it's kind of like Dark Souls, where it feels like in order to really understand what's going on in the story, you have to like read a bunch of lore. That's just not something that I want to do. So I'm just kind of exploring around. I fought a bunch of the bosses. I'm not. The one weird thing is that maybe it's because I'm not paying attention to the story, but I don't really know what the end game is. Like I'm still not really like I'm uncovering new areas, but I don't really know when I'm gonna be finishing the game. And I'm also a little bit lost in the sense that I feel like they're areas that I can't reach that I feel like I need abilities for, but I have no idea where to find these abilities. Like I feel like I need some kind of grappling hook at some point, but I have no idea where this grappling hook is. Like I don't. So I don't know. I might end up pulling out a walkthrough at some point to at least point me in the right direction, but at this point, I'm still able to kind of like explore and uncover new areas, so it's still fun. And yeah, I definitely recommend the game. I think it looks beautiful, and I think it has pretty solid gameplay. And I think if you're into something like Dark Souls, where you know it's one of those things where the story isn't really told to you, but you kind of have to uncover it by exploring the world and reading a bunch of lore, then this might be something that interests you. But I'm personally not really appreciating it from that perspective. But yeah, and I also finished playing Tomb Raider. This is the first of the latest reboot trilogy. So it's not. I haven't played. This is actually the first Tomb Raider game that I played. Talked a bit about it last week. I never played any of the older ones. This is the first of the rebooted trilogy, and I had a good time with it. It does kind of feel like Uncharted, but not as good as Uncharted in a lot of ways. Like I don't think the set pieces are quite as good as Uncharted. The narrative isn't quite as good as Uncharted. Not that Uncharted has an especially strong narrative, apart from the fourth game, I would say. But I think what Uncharted gets right is the characterizations of the characters. Like I do quite enjoy Nate, just his quips and whatever. I enjoy his dynamic with Sully. And I do think that is enough to pull the story along. That's not really here in this game. Like, I mean, I guess first of all, it is a lot darker than Uncharted, so there just isn't really a lot of quippiness or fun in the narrative, really. But then when that's not there, it's also just not a very good or engaging story. But that being said, I had a decent enough time with it. I think the gameplay, I will say the gameplay is probably better than Uncharted. At least better than the first three Uncharted games. I feel like those games kind of, it kind of feels like a bunch of waves of guys coming at you. And the shooting is just kind of there, but not all that engaging. I actually do think that the combat in this is way more engaging. I think there's a lot more variety and stuff to do here. So I do appreciate it from that point. And I will say, the pacing of it is strange because about halfway through the game, right, you kind of feel like, oh, okay, this was a lot shorter than I expected, but I'm coming to the end. And in my mind, I was like, it's not that I was like getting sick of the game or needed it to end, but this feels about right. Like, okay, the game is coming to an end. It's a shorter game, but that's cool. But then, like, and it feels like you're coming up to this climax, and it feels like it's ending, and then it doesn't. And then the rest of the game just happens. And it's not bad by any means. Like, I wasn't like, ugh, I don't want to play this game anymore, but it was just a very weird experience where I thought the game was ending, and I was kind of content with it ending, and then it didn't, and then it just kept on going, and I wasn't mad that it was going. I was having a decent enough time with it as it kept on going, but it was just a weird pacing. It was just weird pacing, and I don't think the story justified itself continuing. Because it actually feels like you kind of play through the game twice in a way. but yeah, it was just kind of a weird. The game is paced weirdly from a narrative point of view. That being said, I had fun with the gameplay all throughout, and I would recommend it. I am probably gonna move on. I am probably gonna play the second one, and I will say I hope the narrative improves. Like, or at the very least, I hope not that Laura Croft needs to like be happier or like I don't think she needs to be like Nathan Drake, but I wouldn't mind having like a compatriot, right? That maybe she can be like the straight man off of like a goofy sidekick or something. Because if you're not gonna pull me in from a narrative point of view, if you're not gonna be like The Last of Us or something, at least be fun. That's what I feel like, you know. But yeah. That's about it for the show today. Not a huge show or anything. It still went on for a decent amount of time. Just I feel like I rambled a lot this episode. But yeah, let me know what you thought about any and all of those news stories. Let me know if you've played any of those games. And I'll try to watch some stuff this week so that I have something to talk about in the what I've watched section. But yeah. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, ring the bell, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.